Hi, everyone. If you're thinking about building a micro resort, Airbnb cabins, or just some short term rentals, I want to share something with you that could literally save you tens of thousands of dollars. I've spent over 20 years in the construction industry, building houses, managing crews, pouring foundations, working on ranches, and now building and owning our own micro resorts. And what I've learned over the years is this: most investors don't lose money in hospitality, they lose it in the construction phase. So, in this video, I'd like to share with you the lessons that I've learned and what you should do differently if you want to build smart and actually make money, guys. So, to tell you guys a little bit about me, I joined the construction industry at a really young age. After high school, I actually went straight into it, went to join the Carpenters Union in St. Louis. I did that for a while, and I thought, you know what, I want a career change. I had friends that went into the military, so I did the same thing. I went into the military. I became 11 Bravo, which is infantry. I don't know if anybody knows that. And I was in there, did a tour in Iraq, and then I came home. When I came home, instead of going back to the city, my dad had started a construction company when I was in high school, and I didn't go to work for him after high school. I went to try to do my own thing, but so when I came back, though, he was pretty successful. So I went and started helping him and done a lot with him until, as I got older, I got into different things, started raising whitetail deer. I started guiding at ranches, and I started my own construction company. So I've been in the construction industry for over 20 years, and it's been a lot of fun. I've learned a lot of stuff. Mainly, I've learned how to make a lot of money as a contractor. And in saying that, if you've learned how to make a lot of money, you've probably learned how to save people a lot of money. And that's where I kind of you know I seen people really price gouging other people. And the one thing that people don't understand is, if your bid is 30 or 40% over what it should have been. I've always heard people say, well, I really don't want this job, but I bid it, three times as much as what it should have been bid at, and they still took the bid. So now I'm doing it, so those are the little things you don't hear behind the scenes and everything. So, but yeah, that's, a little bit about us and about me, and, just trying to get a little bit out there about who I am, and why I'm doing what I'm doing. And now me and my family, we have built and own micro resorts of our own and rentals. So uh, honestly, me and my wife just bought another 37 acres with a lake, and we're getting ready to start building another micro resort here. And it's going to be fun. It's going to be hopefully, we're going to start out with probably 4 to 5 cabins around our lake on this one. So yeah, just everything that I share with you guys today, just know that this is actual, real job site experience, and this is not theory. This isn't a step by step on how to get lucky and build a $7 million micro resort. You know, Whenever we started, I didn't have anybody to invest in all of our stuff. We had to do it the old-fashioned way and work hard. There's so many people out there nowadays that are pushing, do this, build a $7 million micro resort, do this, and it's like, if you really break down how they built what they built, it's not feasible. Most people don't have a somebody alongside them that they can take out a $500,000 loan to go and build a luxury micro resort. Okay, so we are the everyday working people, and we are honestly here to tell you and show you how to build the micro resort, even if you have to do it one cabin at a time. That's so much better. Each cabin you build is going to build wealth for you. Okay, yeah, if you know somebody that's got a line of credit that you can go borrow from, and you want them to invest into your business, by all means. I mean, that may be a good possibility for you, maybe something that's worth looking into. But for the everyday person, they don't have a $500,000 line of credit. All right. And for somebody to throw that out there and say that, we did this by this and we got lucky and all this, you're right. You got lucky. You got very lucky. And luck should not be a part of this. Okay. We want you guys to be able to go in and just know that when you set a construction budget or when you say, hey, this is going to cost this. Okay, the reason why it has to be this is because on the back end, you are spending so much money per month on a payment that if your ROI is not where it needs to be, you're not paying your bills. You'll lose everything you got. So you have to know what's going on. You have to be able to keep track of every single thing that goes into the micro resort or an Airbnb cabin as you're building, or if not, before you start building. That way there is no panic. When you get halfway down the road, you can see that, man, we're actually saving money instead of, spending into that 10-20% markup that we had, plan for that might happen. So that is what we're here for, guys, is to make sure that you stay on track. Okay, because it's very easy to get off track and start spending way more money than what you had budgeted for. So all right, so let's get into the first one. Lesson one: contractors don't think like investors. One of the biggest mistakes that I see is whenever you're going in and you're starting to build your cabins or whatnot, I want you to know that whenever I say the contractors are thinking about profitability, it's their profits, not yours. Okay? They're thinking about how much they're going to make. They don't care if you don't have a renter after they're done for 30 days, for the first 30 days. They don't care. They just want to get paid and get out. Okay? That is why they're there, to build your stuff, get paid, go. Okay? That's just how it works. So they're not thinking about your profitability. So when we're talking about your ROI, return on investment, so when the contractor is in there, the first thing he's trying to do is complete the job. Okay, he's trying to complete the job. He's trying to protect himself. Okay, so like early spring, there, with me being a contractor in the past, I've always seen Mother Nature act in ways that does not help the contractor whatsoever. And if it ain't helping the contractor, in turn, it's not helping you. Okay. Rain. If you decide, hey, I'm going to build these things in the spring so I can try to have them done by midsummer and start, getting some ROI on what we've put onto the property. Okay. That's great. Great idea. But the thing is, if you're putting in a new road and you got machinery coming in and out, rock is going to kill you. Putting in a new road is going to kill you. The amount of money that you have to spend on rock while they're doing the construction is crazy. And I'll be honest with you, that's money that just disappears. If you don't know what I mean, put in a new road, especially in the spring. Every time something drives over it, that rock pushes down. It's like it never gets a base. You can never put enough rock down. Okay, so think about the rock. All right. In saying that, now whenever they finally get out there, they're starting to build and everything, they're trying to make margins. Okay. So if they can get this job done between this time and this time, they're saving a lot of money because they don't have to send their crews out there 15 different times and 15 different trucks. Okay. So they're trying to get it done as fast as they can so that they can, like I said, make their money and move on. That's the biggest thing. But they are trying to reduce risk as much as possible too. So if they can, they will be out there. They're going to work as fast as they can, and you're going to see, you know, a lot of, like I said, most people, whenever they do bids and stuff like that, they'll mark them up, 10, 20, seen some that were even 30%. And the lack of care, when it's not their property, this is the parts that you got to watch out for. I mean, if you notice that, there's just tons of extra material, maybe inventory your stuff, go out and look at everything. You are the one that is hiring all these guys. You are the one that is paying the bills. Just know that every time he goes to the store or every time that they call out, lumber comes out and gets delivered, that's adding to your monthly payments. Okay. So if you feel something's wrong, it is in your best interest to ask questions. Okay. Do not, I guess they say, pussyfoot around. Don't just watch them do it and then give you bills at the end of the week. These got to be paid. These got to be paid. You have the right to ask questions. All right. So in lesson two, bids can be extremely misleading, guys. The biggest thing is, another big lesson. People think the lowest bid wins, and the bigger bid means that it's quality. And that's not true. Okay. Neither one of those is true. So don't always assume that, okay, like I said, the bigger bid is more quality, because I'm not going to lie to you. Maybe he's an idiot. Okay. Maybe he just don't know how to bid. Okay. Or maybe he's new in the industry and he's trying to make a name for himself. So he bids really, really low. And that is a bigger problem than anything, because if the guy is bidding way too much and you have to go take a loan out for way too much, well, at least you have way too much money sitting there, okay, waiting to be spent. But if the guy that is charging you a quarter of the price says this is how much it is, and you go to the bank and you take out a loan for that to get that job done, and you spend all the money and the job's only halfway done, well, now you got to go back to the bank and you got to figure out how you're going to get the rest of the money to finish the job. Okay, so the biggest thing with all of this is you just have to make sure that when you're getting bids, they are on track. You know exactly what they are wanting. Okay, make sure that your bids are broke down. If they say, like, you're building cabins and it just says cabin 120,000. Okay, well, there's nothing to that. You can't just have that. All right, if they're building 5 cabins, it can't just say cabin 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then have $120,000 out next to it, and then a total at the bottom. Okay, you need to know the breakdown of that cabin. You need to know exactly what you're buying. My thing is if they don't have them itemized out for you, then how do you know that it even includes half the stuff you want? Okay. How big is the hot water heater? Those are all the different things that you need to know. And I've seen bids that people will get and there's nothing on them. They'll literally have nothing on them. Oh, we built this. You need an item list. You need to figure out exactly how much lumber cost. Drywall, what they're planning on doing there. A lot of people, they have the good old buddy system. All right. You cannot depend on somebody that says, oh, I use so and so for drywall. Well, he uses him because it's either he's a buddy, he's a family member, something like that. But when you are getting bids for different things, does the construction bid, the guy that's building the property or building your cabins and stuff like that, or building your Airbnbs, is he including the drywall in your bid? Okay, so what if you get a bid and it says cabin blah 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 130,000, and then at the end of the day he says, all right, well, so and so is going to come out and do your drywall for you, and at the end of that he gives you a bill too. Okay, so you need to have all of this broke down just in case that drywall bid wasn't part of the original bid. Okay, and I've seen guys do this to keep their bid lower. They will say, okay, this is how much it's cost to do this, and oh, well, I didn't know you wanted me to do the drywall, or we had talked about it in the beginning and the drywall was a separate bid from somebody else. So you have to make sure that you know exactly what you're getting when you get the bid. So, lesson three, materials and waste kill profit, guys. It's 100%. That's what kills profit, because as soon as you cut something and it's too short, well, there you go. Now you have to go get a whole new one, and that one gets thrown to the side. Okay. When you're cutting off lumber, or let's just say that he just decided that he needed to train 2 or 3 different people for your job on your job. Well, I can promise you, whenever they say, hey, we're training people, that means they're getting ready to cut up a whole bunch of lumber, or cut drywall or anything that they got to do to train these people, and they're training them, and you're paying for it. Okay, they may be paying their hourly rate, but whenever they cut 4 pieces of drywall and they're all wrong, that $15 sheet of 4x8 drywall is coming out of your pocket. It's not coming out of theirs. Okay, so that's the one thing that you have to watch is, waste kills profitability. And every time they do something and it creates waste, or materials are wasted or anything like that, that is one more month you have to pay a payment on that cabin. Okay, they don't have to worry about it, because when they're done building your place, they're taking those 3 guys that you paid to have trained, and they're going to the next job. All right. So really watch, if you start seeing, man, I got a ton of extra material around here, and, I don't know what all this is for. Maybe they don't even cut it off. Maybe it's just extra material stacked up and banded over here on the side, and nobody's using it. Okay. But then all of a sudden, one day you come in and it's gone. What happened to it? Okay. That's where you, as your own GC, general contractor, if you don't know what that means, you need to be aware of what's coming and going from your job site. Okay. I have seen stuff walk off from job sites numerous times. You think you're the only job that contractor has? No, no. And I can promise you, at the end of the day, whenever he's done working at your job site and tomorrow he's not coming there, let's say he has to go to Lowe's, he needs to pick up some stuff. Okay, well, instead of going to Lowe's and picking stuff up, he may just walk off with it from your job site and take it to the next one. Okay, he may be wanting to replace it later on or whatnot, just save him a trip. But at the end of the day, if he don't replace it, that money comes out of your pocket. Okay, you have to be aware of what's going on your job site. Okay, if you're your own general contractor and you are bidding out all these individual jobs for all these people, it is your job to not lose money. Okay, this is your micro resort, this is your Airbnb cabins. You need to make sure that you're not losing money. And now lesson 4, guys, so sequence mistakes cost thousands sometimes. Okay, not all the time, but it can be very costly. Okay, um, one of the things that I've always seen at the very beginning is, let's say you're putting a foundation in, or you're putting a basement in, any type of concrete work or anything like that. A lot of times your plumbing has to be in prior to getting concrete poured. Okay, so if they put the frost wall in, then they can rough plumb everything. They can do all of the walls. They can then come in and pour your floor for your basement. But the one thing that drives a lot of people crazy is when somebody will get out there and they say, oh, we're going to rough plumb everything in today, so you guys will be able to pour your walls next week. Next thing you know, nobody's made contact with anybody, and that guy that's going to pour the concrete walls comes in next week and there's no rough plumbing done. Okay. So now he can't do what he's got to do, or vice versa. It doesn't really matter what order it goes in. If somebody doesn't do their job and they're not communicating, it can cost you a lot of money. Okay, let's say that the everything's been done and they're just waiting for the guys waiting for the hole to be dug so that he can set forms. Okay, holes dug, and now, or let's say it rained and they couldn't dig the hole. Okay, that's a huge mistake. Okay, if they do not call the guy with the forms, let's say the guy with the forms only has one set of forms. Okay, so if he delivers the forms and you're not ready for them, and this guy's got a job lined up for the end of the week or maybe next week or something like that, if he decides, okay, I'm going to leave the forms, the guy's going to dig the hole, we can pour the foundation here in a couple days, that's one thing. But if he decides, I'm not leaving my forms, I'm going and I'm going to go pour the next foundation, we'll come back to you. Well, I don't know where you guys are from, but where I'm from, a lot of times there's a long wait. There is sometimes 2-month wait to get a foundation poured, because these guys are, they're hopping from job to job to job. Okay. And if that's the case, and these guys are, trying to get your stuff in, and then they're sitting because they're waiting for the foundation guy to come, you know, put in a foundation. Okay, so it's, if you don't have your job planned out, and there's a bunch of different examples I could give you throughout the whole house. If the water, the plumbing, and the electric guy isn't coming in but every couple days, and the drywall guy, he can't do his work until all the rough plumbing and the electric is in the house. So there's a bunch of different things, guys, that you need to pay attention to. And even if it doesn't cost you a lot of money, it can cost you a lot of time. Okay, and time is money. So if you were planning on getting some your micro resort done before the summer, and now it's May or June, and you're just now getting your foundations poured, you're not getting anything rented until later on in the year. Okay, if you get it rented that year at all. So definitely take into consideration how you schedule things, because if you do not schedule it right, it will come back and bite you in the butt. All right. So guys, number 5 is land mistakes are the most expensive. Okay. This is probably the biggest one, guys, because if you are looking at building your micro resort or your Airbnb cabins, let's say, like, for instance, my property. Okay. I have electric in the back where we're going to be building, but the electric where I want the cabins on the lake is probably close to 600 to 1,000 feet from the electric pole. Okay, so to get electric over there, I'm going to have somebody come out, or the electric company come out, set a new pole, and run electric over to those sites. Also, though, once I get them there, now, depending on how close they get, I have to run lines all the way to the new cabins. Okay, and also sewer. So if I want to put cabins on the lake, I have to figure out how to get the sewer in and keep it away from the lake. There's just so many little things. Everybody says, "Oh man, we'd love to have cabins on a lake and stuff like that," but they don't think about the cost of, if DNR or something comes in and says, "Oh wow, redneck John over here just put his sewer out on top of the ground, and it's leaking into the lake." And now anybody that comes out, if they want to go swimming in the lake or they fish in the lake, yeah, there's could be a possible salmonella or something like that in your water. I mean, there's so many different things that you have to do, and you have to do it the right way, and the right way costs money. So just because it can be done doesn't mean that you can afford to do it. So when you're buying your place, you have to make sure that you know what all the costs are before you go out and sign the papers to buy a two, three, four $100,000 place, $1 million place, because you got all these great ideas, but in the end, you have no clue how much it's going to cost you to put all of the stuff in that you want. And then zoning. If that place isn't zoned for what you're trying to do, then when you buy the property, you're just going to have to turn around and sell it again. And so property is huge, guys. How long is it going to take you to get electric from here to there? Is there a well on it? Is there city water? How are you getting water to where you need? How are you getting your utilities to your new cabins or your Airbnb rentals that you're putting on there? Or, if you wanted to do Airbnbs and yurts, or if you want to do RV sites, or whatever you plan on doing, you have to be able to get utilities to people. Okay, that's one thing. They may suffer without having very good phone service. Most people won't these days, but they're not going to sit there and say, I'm not going to go to the bathroom. Okay, we've come a long way from tents. I mean, we still go camping in tents and stuff too, but 9 chances out of 10 there's bathrooms close. Okay, so you got to have utilities for people. Okay, and that costs money. So definitely look at what the utility access is. So like I talked about, we have the drainage and everything, the permits, septic, all of those things, guys, they cost money. And if you do not look into all of that stuff prior to buying the property, you could have a huge, massive surprise once you find out how much it's actually going to cost to get electric and water and sewer to where you're building. All right. Yeah, that's just that right there is a massive one. Um, all right, guys. So, our biggest thing is, we've gone over everything that you shouldn't do or you should be on the lookout for. All right. So what investors should do instead is definitely a big thing. So what should you do differently? What I recommend, educate yourself. If you're not going to educate yourself, if you're not going to find out how much it's actually, get a roundabout, it normally costs this much to build this, or to get electric put in, it normally costs this. Okay. That way you kind of have an idea of, is the contractor screwing me on his bid? Or, when they say it's going to cost this, and then once they're done with the job, it cost 2 times what it was supposed to cost. Okay. Stuff like that happens, and it's not fair, and it may not even be legal. Okay. So definitely know what's going on um, in your in your micro resort while you're building. Definitely keep track of everything. Try to keep inventory of everything. You're not going to be able to keep track of every 2x4, every piece of OSB that comes in or out, but you should be able to keep track of a lot of things so that you don't watch all of the money that you're having to spend over the next 30 years just walk right out the door. Okay, that's what we're trying to prevent for you. So after you buy your property and everything, and you're sitting there and you're trying to figure out, what is this, what is that, the biggest thing, guys, is get multiple bids. Okay. And like I said, make sure that they're breaking their bids down. All right. That way, this is to help you out. You're not being I know a lot of people are like, oh wow, I just don't want to be that asshole that went and got 10 different bids to do something. And I feel bad because John came out and he gave me a bid, and I feel obligated to go with him. No. Okay. This is business. Okay. This is something that, even if I looked at my home and I said, okay, well, my home is something we're staying, we're living here. This is how much it's going to cost me a month to buy our house and have it built. This is something even more different than that. This is something that's bringing in profit for you. And so eventually, hope your idea is that, you know, 30 years down the road, this is 100% completely paid for. That's if you do a 30-year, So, I mean, a lot of people are a lot better with money. They can pay it off sooner. But my thing is if it's not profitable from day one, then it's not something that you're going to want to get into. Okay, so if you build 5 cabins and you're bringing in $20,000 a month, but the bills and everything is $25,000 a month, that makes no sense. Okay, so you have to sit down and go over all of the bids. Make sure that the bids make sense to you. If they don't make sense to you, contact the contractor and be like, this, I have questions on this. Ask questions. Like I said, if they think that they're just going to give you a bid, come out and build it, and everything's just hunky-dory, that's not how it works. Okay, this is a business for you too. You're trying to make money. The only way you make money is to make sure that the costs stay at a reasonable level. So don't hand over control of it. If you're getting tired of being the general contractor, and you have no clue what's going on, and something along the lines has fell apart. Okay, you need to reconvene with every single person that's doing work for you there. Go back over everything. Make sure that the prices are making sense to you. Okay, I couldn't tell you how many times we've helped people and they're just so frustrated. They're frustrated because they've allowed something to happen, or they've allowed a little bit of the control on this to get away from them, and the contractor slowly takes more and more and more responsibility towards building, and before you know it, it's like, wow, this thing has cost us way more than it was supposed to, and you're not getting any more for your money. So where is that money going? So that's the biggest thing. Make sure that you're asking questions. You have the right to ask your contractors what's going on, even after you approve the bid. when they giving you bills, like I said, you can go back over your bills and be like, hey, you said it was only going to cost this much to do this bathroom or this much to build this cabin. They're creeping up. Why is this one 10% more than the last one we built? There's different things that you need to ask, and do not feel guilty for it. Okay. They need to answer your questions. You're the general contractor. They're just the contractor. They're the ones doing the work. All right. And like I said, the last thing is validate your numbers. Okay. Like I said, make sure that they are on point with what it's costing. Okay. If they're not on point, then that is something that you need to sit down with them and say, what is the cause for this to go up an extra 10%? You guys, a lot of times they'll put in an extra 10, 20, 30% on the bid to make up for the things that they didn't see coming or you didn't see coming. Prices may have rose a little bit or something, but if it starts creeping north of that, then what your buffer has been there, is supposed to take care of, then yes, you need to sit down. We got to go over this. Was there a lot more rain this spring? Is there rock in the ground when we're putting foundations in? Did it cost more to get that dirt and rock out of the ground so that you could pour your foundations? There's different things that come up. So you can't always say that the contractor's wrong, but if the contractor is not staying in contact with you and trying to keep you updated on every single thing that's going on, and it's going to cost you more money. We had to rent a rock breaker for a whole week to break out all of this rock. That's legitimate. That is something that nobody can get around. Okay. But you have to start. That's cutting into that 10-20% that you've put in there for buffer. Once that's gone, things are going to start going, they're going to skyrocket. Okay. So just make sure that you are on the same page as your contractors. All right. So, that's basically a lot of what, we have to go over and everything, and make sure that, you guys are staying in control of your bids and all, or control of your builds. And that way, exactly what is going on. And that way you can be profitable faster. The good news is building a micro resort is very doable. I've seen numerous regular people, everyday people like us, build micro resorts when they do it the right way. You do not need to be a contractor. You just need the right knowledge and the right plan. If you're thinking about building and wanting to avoid expensive mistakes, that's exactly what we do inside Micro Resort Academy. We help investors plan, build, and launch profitable properties using real numbers and real systems. If this video helped you, please subscribe to our channel and hit that bell. I'll be sharing a lot more about construction, investing, and micro resorts here in the future. And I'll see you on the next video. Thank you, guys.